Lindsay, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? What's going on?
Excellent. I'm wondering, do you ever have a quiet day?
A quiet day. Oh, it sounds so great.
Doesn't that sound lovely?
Do you mean like the things going on around me are quiet or I'm quiet? Was
Either,
that a
up to you.
follow-up
There are so
question?
many meanings of the word quiet, right?
Sure, I have a quiet day sometimes. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
good to have like a noisy day and then a
Mm.
quiet day.
I
So,
miss
what
the
about
I
you?
miss quiet days, right? Now that I have 4
Yeah.
children, there's never a quiet day.
I
Maybe if
know.
I go on vacation somewhere super chill, then I could have a quiet day.
Right. Or if the kids go to camp or something and you have the house to yourself, but yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
But sometimes I do feel a little more quiet. I love that you said, like me, am I being quiet? Sometimes
Right.
I'm a little
Yeah.
more quiet. My kids will be like, "Mom, what's wrong? Why are you so quiet?"
Yeah, sometimes you're just in a more reflective mood,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. This word quiet does have so many meanings and
Mhm.
is used in so many ways, right? It's a noun, it's a verb, it's an adjective. We got a really good question about this that we're going to answer today. Give you guys
Okay.
lots of details about how you can use this interesting word.
All right. So I will dive in and read the question. This question is from Now or Never. Love it.
Yes.
This student says, "Hi, Lindsay and Michelle. Thanks, and Aubrey and Jessica. Many thanks for all of what you provide for us to improve our English connection with the real English world. I have a question about the word quiet that carries multiple meanings. It's a noun, verb, adjective. Need to break it down to know all situations it's being used in. Nice. Good question,
Yes.
right?
Very good question. This can make English so tricky when if you could know it's just an adjective and and master how
Yeah.
to use that, easy. But
Right.
unfortunately, for a lot of words, that's not the case. So we're going to
Correct.
share lots of examples for how it's used in all of these different ways.
Yep. And don't forget, guys, go check out episode 2099, where we talked about how to switch topics like a pro for better connection, because that is a good way to learn how to move between topics, which is something we all
Yes.
need to work on to move to
Yes.
99% fluency. Yep.
So many great phrases in that episode to help you
Mhm.
transition and really good advice for knowing if it's time to transition. That was a great episode.
Love it. All right. Let's get into it, Aubrey. Where do we start today?
All right, let's start with the adjective quiet, right? This just means, of course, making little or no noise. So, this is like
Mhm.
when I said sometimes I'm being quiet, I feel quiet. I'm using this as an adjective. So, let's give some
Mhm.
examples.
Okay, so my car is so quiet that sometimes people step right in front of it. Ooh, that might be a danger of an
That
electric
actually,
car.
this happens to me a lot. My car's fully electric,
Oh,
and I'll be in a
right.
parking lot, and someone won't hear it, and they'll just
Oh my
step right in front
gosh.
of me. You don't think about the downside of having a very quiet car. I have to drive
Interesting.
very slowly just in
That's
case
really
anyone doesn't hear it.
true. I never thought about that, but that's a really good point. Dangerous.
Yes, and my children,
Yeah.
when they're crossing the road, often they're just listening for a car, and I'm like, "You have to look because you might not hear some cars these days."
Wow. Okay. And then what else? What else?
And then, of course, the instructions I often have to give my children, just please be quiet, and here we're using it as an adjective. We're asking someone to lower their voice, lower the sound they're making, maybe stop running around.
Right, right. And then the next one is talking about kind of a personality trait,
Right.
right, Aubrey?
Yeah, it means
Someone
not
yeah.
talkative. So this is tricky
Okay.
too because just the adjective quiet has 3 meanings. So first, like
Mhm.
just something that's making little noise, and then the second is to be not talkative as in a little bit shy.
Right. So, for example, my daughter is quiet, right? So, kids can
Mhm.
be quiet. Sometimes, what would be the opposite of quiet? Like a kid who
Noisy,
is noisy,
boisterous maybe, right?
boisterous, rowdy. Rowdy could
Mhm.
be a good one. Yeah.
Yes. And it's
Mhm.
like we were saying before, it's according to your mood sometimes. If someone says, "Oh, you've been
Yeah.
quiet this morning." Maybe someone normally is very talkative, but they're
Right.
feeling pensive, they're a little more quiet. This you might
Yeah.
say, "Hmm,
So you might say that if you're checking in on someone. I think in American
yeah,
culture, we have a bias towards assuming something's wrong if you're quiet, right?
it's
I think
true."
we've said this before in other episodes. We're a very verbal culture, right?
It's true. It's really interesting. And for me, at least, I am quite talkative and chatty usually. So if I'm quiet, often something is wrong. I don't usually get
Yeah, me
pensive
too.
just to think about the state of the world, you know. Usually I'm dwelling on something. I'm angry with my
Right.
children. There's usually a
Yeah.
reason.
Right, for sure, for sure. The only time for me during the week that I tend to get more quiet is like if I go to my meditation practice. Obviously, Well, I'm meditating,
Mm,
you should be quiet, right? There's no talking. And like at the top, if I'm listening to a talk, then I would be kind of quiet, a little more
mm,
pensive, a little more inward looking,
for sure.
reflective. But yeah, in general, we're a culture that kind of revolves around communication, verbal communication. That's
For
true.
sure.
For
All
better
right,
or
there's
for
a
worse.
third meaning of this adjective, and this means unobtrusive or conservative. We often use it to talk about colors. We would say someone wears
Oh,
quiet colors if they wear like gray and blue. And then for the opposite, would say loud colors for more boisterous, vibrant, colorful colors, bright oranges, bright, greens.
yes, like all ears English, the yellow. We're
Yes,
definitely an out loud color
we
kind of
like loud
brand.
colors here at
Yeah,
All
like
Ears
loud
English.
colors. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
Um,
often this is also used to describe decor or decorations, right?
yes. What is your preference? For example, they prefer quiet decor. What's your preference in your home, Aubrey? How do you what are your what's your color palette? I'm
Yeah,
curious.
we prefer quiet decor. It's often up to my partner. I am a little
Yeah.
less I'm a little more apathetic when it comes to decorating
Oh,
the home. I
interesting.
think that's the
Oh,
case that usually one of you cares a little bit
right.
more.
Right.
So, but we do have some pops of color here and there, so that's good.
Okay. So kind of a subdued look and then pops of color, right?
Yes, what about you?
Similar actually. We kind of have a bit of a Scandinavian kind of look going, and I didn't
Mm,
realize that until I had a member of my meditation group come over and he said, "Your decor's kind of like Scandinavian." And I think, "Okay, that's cool." I
interesting.
didn't think about
Nice.
it, but I guess kind of. And so
That's
yeah,
cool.
kind of that similar like grays. I also think that's sort of in style right now. Kind of the
Yes, the muted.
grays, the subdued with the pops of color.
Yes,
So, I'm
exactly.
not
White
sure.
walls, light gray walls,
Right.
kitchens that are very white, right? At least in the
Farmhouse
States.
style.
That's very
Yeah.
modern, yeah.
Yeah, kind of like they call that like a farmhouse style is in style right now for sure in the US.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, anyways,
All right,
very
let's
good
dive
tools.
into the noun now, right? So we've covered the
Mhm.
adjective, 3 different ways to use quiet to describe nouns as an adjective,
Mhm.
but we also use it as a noun, and it means silence or calm. This is a
Mhm.
little less common. You might see this when you're reading, you'll hear it sometimes, and you when we hear it most often, I think it's collocated with peace and quiet. Like, "I
Oh,
need
yeah.
some peace and quiet."
Yeah, this is a good collocation right here, right? Or the smoke alarm pierced the early morning quiet, and that's talking about kind of an environment of quiet, right? That's how it felt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, right? So we're using it as a noun here, which this is really kind of what makes this word confusing. It's not just an adjective. You'll see it used in lots of different ways.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Do you like to go out in the morning, in the early morning when it's quiet?
Yes, I
Go
love that
outside
early
for a
morning
walk?
quiet. I know no one's out, no one's awake yet. I actually
It's
really
the
do
best.
love that.
Me too, I love it, I love it. Alright, now, my gosh, we just keep going to different ways to use it. A verb. What else?
Yes. Yeah, we use it as a verb to mean to make calm or still. We often talk about this with children, right? I was having trouble quieting my kids down, or your kids need to quiet down. And often we also create this phrasal verb, quiet down.
I was having trouble quieting my kids down, or I'm trying to quiet my racing thoughts so I can focus. Quiet your thoughts. And that's a common, we talk about the monkey mind. We talk about
Right.
this a lot in meditation practice, always moving around from top, swinging from the branches like a monkey. That is your
Yes.
mind.
This is for sure something you might hear in a meditation class. They might say,
Yes.
quiet your thoughts. And in
Quiet
British
your
English, they often say, quieten your thoughts.
Oh,
So that's sort of a
really?
difference
Is that what
between American English and British English. Yeah. In the
that is
US, we don't
interesting.
say quieten, but in British English,
No.
you'll hear that. Yeah.
I've never heard that in England, but that's
Mhm.
fascinating that they say that. Huh.
Mhm.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Role play today, Aubrey. Shall we do it?
Yes, let's do it. We're going to use all of these different ways of using quiet. We're going to cram them all into one role play. All
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. I
right, we're
need a bit
just
of
chatting at the park in this role
Oh yeah,
play.
we're chatting at the park. Little context. Hey, I need a bit of quiet. My neighbors are remodeling and the construction has been so loud.
I hear you. My daughter is usually pretty quiet, but today was a different story.
Oh, not a quiet day, huh? What happened?
She's just so talkative and full of energy. I had to quiet her down at the library.
All
Okay,
right.
we
Yeah,
use
so
them
we're
all here, right?
use them all. Yeah.
That
Wow.
first you said, "I need a bit of quiet," and this is where you're using it as a noun. You could say, "I need some peace and quiet," or just, "Oh, I need a bit of quiet."
Yes, love that. I need a bit of quiet. Sounds good. And then you said, I hear you. My daughter is usually pretty quiet, but today was a different story, right?
Yeah, so you might hear this from someone with young children, right? Often
Mhm.
children are pretty quiet and chill, and then other days they're running all over crazy and loud. You're like, "Oh, today
Yeah.
was a different story," meaning that was she was acting out of the norm, a little different.
Yes. Yeah, you weren't used to it, right. And then
Mhm.
I said, "Oh, not a quiet day, huh?" I would and you wrote "A" in our role play, which sounds Canadian to
And you
me,
feel
but
like you should say, "Huh."
I
I
changed that
say
to
"a"
"huh."
sometimes. Not a quiet day, eh?
That's good, that's good. Mix it up, mix it up. What else?
Yes, and that was where it's an adjective, right? A quiet
Mhm.
day, using it as an adjective, and then I said, "I had to quiet her down at the library." That's the verb. I had to get her to become more quiet. I had to quiet her down.
Right, so to quiet someone down. Good. All right. So where should we leave our listeners? I feel like we've shown our listeners, we've answered this question, shown our listeners all the different ways that we use quiet. It's pretty extensive, isn't it?
It is, right? And this is why a word like this can be confusing. If it were just an adjective, easy, no problem, but it's a noun, a
Easy.
verb, an adjective.
Mm.
So today's tips will help you clarify all the different ways that you can use this word.
Yeah, and I think actually one final thought to think about would be interesting from a cultural perspective, right? What does your culture value? Because our culture, I think, like we said earlier, this is my opinion, doesn't as much let's say in the working world, in the professional world, I think values someone speaking up and not necessarily being super quiet. I think there's a time to listen. I think listening is underrated, but
Yeah.
I think in general society values expression and like contributing to a conversation. What do you think about that,
Yes,
Aubrey?
I absolutely agree. And I would say, even outside of the working world, if you think of the average conversation, we often will do like a fire pit and we're all sitting around the fire pit. And
Mhm.
it's really nice when, everyone has something to say, something to contribute. But every now and then I will feel myself, I'm just feeling a little quiet. I'm sitting back and just listening. And
Mhm.
it's nice to have friends that value that, right? And someone else
Mhm.
can pick up the conversation for a little bit, right? Because I agree. Both. There's positives for both, right? You want to be contributing to the conversation, but also you want to be listening.
Yeah. Do they still have here's a question because you have kids in school. Do, schools still give you grades on participation? Like how much you speak up in class?
Interesting question. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not sure, but my guess is yes.
Okay.
I have a daughter who is really quiet, and she
Mm.
would never speak in class if she could help it.
Right.
And I know she'll come home sometimes and share stories of when a teacher is like calling her and encouraging her to participate. I'm
Right.
not sure if she's graded on it, but I definitely know kids are still, they're not allowed to just sort of hide in the back and never speak.
Right, and I just wonder because I know that was a big deal when I was in school, right? There was a participation score for I don't there's probably a test score and then a participation score or attendance score, all these things, and I remember feeling a lot of pressure to speak up in class, and that was a huge part of how you were evaluated. I wonder if in our listeners' cultures, if that's a thing, because
Oh,
that
I'm
would tell us a
curious.
lot about what our economy values, what different economies value.
Right, and I need to
Mm.
ask my children because that was a big deal for me too in high school and college, that if they were having a discussion, it was being tracked if you were participating, if you were
Mhm.
commenting, asking questions, and so I'd have to force myself to think of something to say because it's a
Yeah.
lot easier in a big
Yeah.
crowd to just sit back and listen.
So maybe we should do that for the poll today. What do you think? Do
Ooh,
that for the
yes.
poll for our
I
listeners. If
love
you're
that.
listening in Spotify, you get to participate. Very cool. So check out our poll after today's episode, and we're going to learn a little bit about each other's cultures. So we'll come
Love
up
it.
with some way of asking that. Good stuff today, Aubrey. Thanks for hanging out.
Awesome. Thanks, Lindsay. See you next time.
All right. Take care. Bye.